Shut up and sit down.
Round 12 of the ChampCar iRacing series for 2020. We're sticking with the street stock for this round, like it was last round at Indianapolis, but now we've made the long tow out west, Auto Club Speedway. This is very fast, very big oval, and quite the tricky twisting infield to this one. So we'll see how the drivers manage lumbering this heavy, unsophisticated brute of a V8 around this course for a 1-hour race with a required pit stop. So we hand out the points and the participation and see who is getting that much closer to winning themselves a free entry into a real-world endurance race of their choice with the ChampCar Endurance Series in 2021. That is very much on the tip of our tongues on the back half of the championship here. Who is in line to pick up some great prizes and who is going to race their way to the top. So I'm David Haynes, Devin Peters joining me as ever, and Michael Derby on production, on the cameras, and making sure everything rolls smoothly. Devin, people think of Indianapolis as being pretty quick, but this is a seriously fast race course on the banking here, definitely akin to Daytona in terms of the drafting and the kind of speeds I think we're going to see.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that these cars are going to be flying on their way into turn 3 there as they turn into the infield. Should be real fun to watch these guys, and you know, there's no surprise that these cars will be going as fast as they are with all that displacement, right?
Yeah, exactly. We have a rotating roster of 3 different cars that we use in this series. We've had the Pontiac Solstice, we had the NC Mazda Miata, and then for some of the races, the higher speed, longer straight tracks, we've been using the street stock because of that big V8 that it's got, not dissimilar to some of the big V8s you occasionally see in D-Class on the ChampCar Endurance Series. It's qualifying underway right now before we get to that 1-hour race, and I don't know if this should be a surprise or not, but points leader and defending champion Alex Albert, not currently on pole, Simon Foweather in the number 7, has got himself the best time of the session with only 2 minutes left.
Yeah, and Simon's been around for a few races this season. Hasn't made every single one, but when he has been here, he's been pretty quick. He hasn't managed to put together a win yet, though, so it'll be interesting to see if he can turn that speed advantage into an actual points finish this time around.
And what about the weather out west? I think it's quite a lovely day, but it's not as hot as I might have otherwise been expecting for the California sun. Weather on your screen there, what's that, 70-something Fahrenheit for a track surface temperature? That's probably for the best, because the tires on this car, what can I say about them other than I don't think they've changed since the 70s, and tire technology's come a long way since then. We're not talking radial tires, we're not talking any fancy compounds. The tires on these cars, they've got a lot of slip and a lot of play, and they can wear out quite quickly on a hot track, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been following along course with Alex Albert, who's trying to take away that pole position, but he just drove it super duper slow through the infield, cooling those tires off before making one final run. 45 seconds left in qualifying.
Exactly. Checkered flag will come out shortly. Everyone on a lap will get to finish it. Chris Knisley has just improved himself 1 spot to 9th. John Hurley comes across the line, but Alex Albert, as you mentioned, last-ditch effort to see if he can be the pole sitter. Very, very fast through what would be ovals 1 and 2, and then you make the turn into the infield, and it's a lot of 90-degree corners, like the streets in Manhattan, for the infield before it eventually builds up a little bit of character.
And I remember watching some old school Continental, kind of ST racing in this track in the wet, and that infield corner or that turn onto the infield is particularly treacherous. But it might actually be an advantage to be on the outside as they head into turn number 3 there, because of course it switches back real quickly to the right.
So here we are, flat out chicane there before you got to set yourself up for what's kind of a bit of an infield bus stop here. Be careful with the track limits, but make sure you leave nothing on the table. And a lot of drivers locking up front tires here, locking up front tires there. Very easy to do with the way the brakes are in this car, the way the grip is with this car, and of course the tires kind of always going away from you. Alex Albert throws some cones in the air, but now it's full throttle back up onto the banking and towards the start-finish line at Auto Club Speedway. I think Alex Albert's rolled out of that one. This is not going to be an improvement for him. And who else can improve out there? Not sure, but it's not going to be Alex Albert. So at the moment, Simon Foweather looking good for pole position for round 12. Got Justin Hall. We got John Hurley still out there throwing it around.
Yeah, nicely came across the line there, about 500 slower than his best lap. But he'll be pleased to put that Tiger Stripe car into 9th place.
John Hurley's gone across the line and made no improvement, not even close. So Simon Foweather still out there in the Democratic People's Republic of Simon car.
Nuclear powered, that one, not a V8. At least according to the bumper.
Nice to have a little bit of character with that one. Justin Hall's about to come to the line, and we'll see if Florida man can improve. He's very, very close with Alex Albert on the timesheet there. Less than 1/10 of a second, exactly 100th of a second between them, but no improvement from Hall on that lap. So I think some of the best laps might have been set picking up a little bit of a tow, a little bit of draft out there. Let's see if that keeps the pack together. Simon Foweather also made no improvement right at the end, so that's about to be qualifying done.
Yeah, and a real opportunity for folks today. I think, only 12 cars on the grid, 14 registered, and points paid out all the way down to 20th. So there's definitely going to be some people who are going to see a nice bump for showing up today.
Very well might be. Long tow out west. So it is. So here is your grid. Simon Foweather on pole position, sharing the front row with Alex Albert. Behind them, Justin Hall and Max Lupfer. Pretty sure both of those guys have won a race this season as well. So I think your top 4 is looking good. Then in 5th place, Aaron Thorpe from Matthew Thompson. John Hurley back in 7th there, but I think he knows how to manage a bit of horsepower and run a race strategy. So we'll see how he goes. Jason Fianek in 8th, Chris Knisley in 9th, David Palermo in 10th, and being at the short grid that it is, I'll run us through to the end here. Andrew Cosick in 11th, Rachel Cosick in 12th. Then back row of the grid says Sean Saputra and Philip Hayden. But I'm very confident Sean Saputra is not going to be taking the grid because we've got him in the YouTube chat here. So here we go, Devon. Expectations for 60 minutes race. Everyone on the same setup, starting with a limited amount of fuel, is going to need a pit stop.
Yeah, and I've just heard actually on the internal radio that this will be Andrew Cosick's first race starting in 11th place. So should be a wide range of experience out there, but the qualifying times lead me to believe that the race at the front's going to be punchy, and then we should have a good pack from about 7 on back of guys that are all sort of right around the same pace. Challenging track to make one's iRacing debut on, of course. Looks more like an autocross in that last section than anything else. But I'm expecting that we'll have some quality racing up and down the field today.
So the pace car pulls away, and your front row, Simon Foweather and Alex Albert, follow suit. You don't have to do a full pace lap here, which is probably for the best for them. This layout 2.8 miles. And we saw some maximum speeds approaching about 150 miles an hour going into turn 2 or 3. So the average speed's pretty high, but it's not a particularly short lap length.
I love the look of that number 1 car from Matthew Thompson there. Flex
Here we go.
Seal sponsored.
Safety car, pace car is in. Front row are just waiting on the green flag. Simon Foweather still keeping the field backed up. Now he applies the V8 power to the pavement and gets away. A little bit of a bump draft almost back there. Matthew Thompson assisting Max Lupfer to get along. Down the inside line there, Justin Hall's picking up a good draft and coming along for the lead as well. This is going to look a little bit super speedway pack racing until they make that turn onto the infield.
And Alex Albert clears down to the inside, and he's got a plan.
That he does. Tyres are fresh, but the tyres are cold right now, and you can see that his leader locks up. Second and third all lock up as well, super deep into the chicane, and Max Lupfer is going to take the lead. They all followed each other off there. Cold tyres. The brain might have also needed a bit of warming up as well.
Yeah, and I was noticing they were kicking up a lot of dust on the way through the oval, so I think the track got reset, and between the dust and the cold tires, that caught everyone out.
Certainly did. From the second row of the grid, Max Lupfer is through into the lead, and Matthew Thompson's followed him through as well into second. Your pole sitter way off the circuit from first. He's down into 11th, and you can see tire lockup, tire smoke everywhere. All of these guys need to play around with the brake bias a little bit. That is an adjustment available to them, but this concrete bathtub does not like to slow down.
Yeah, Justin Hall is reporting in all the way back in what looks like 8th place right now. Yeah, and he was on the third place right off the start there. So we're going to see some fast guys having to fight through some traffic and make some time here. And Max Lupfer is not someone you want to give a lot of time to. He's had some very strong performances in the races he's been out to.
Yeah, absolutely. He has pretty strong competitor. Came close to the win at Indy. Well, now he's leading by 1.2 seconds. He'll have had last race to warm up and become acclimatized to this street stock. Alex Albert's going to go for second around the outside of Matthew Thompson. Let's see if that's where you desire to be. Take a look there. He has to go up high. Brake deep, but not too deep like they all did on lap 1. Through the 90 left and then the 90 right into the infield. And he catches a lot of curb. He gets some air, and that sends him out into the grass where there's no grip. He's back into third, so that corner, deceptively difficult. It's a flat, uncambered, 90-degree left-hander, and everyone is misjudging it.
Oh no, we've got a spin back in the field. David Palermo, the number 5 car, has just put it around. He has avoided any damage, though, and done a nice donut. He'll be back on track, down a few more positions. Simon Foweather flying by, too.
This race has been so far anything but predictable.
And you see him turn into that corner, and it looks like the rear end just gets away from him, almost like the rears were locking up. And, you know, this car is really one that managing the brake bias throughout the stint to manage the heat on the tires is really key, along with making sure that your right foot isn't too aggressive.
I think the NASCAR Cup drivers on road courses like to call that a little bit of wheel hop. It's also not a sophisticated gearbox in this car. 4-speed manual and not a whole lot to help you matching revs on the downshifts or anything like that. The downshifts are also pretty difficult, not to mention the weight of this car requires a whole lot of wowing up.
And Justin Hall took a run at the outside wall that time. I thought he was going to go straight into it. And he's choosing the high line, interestingly enough. I'm not sure what the logic is on that one. Maybe he's got to slow down from coming out of the infield too wide?
Very potentially. You know, the track limits are marked by white lines and traffic cones in quite a lot of places, and you can get a penalty for cutting those corners. They're less self-enforcing than they are at some other great circuits of California, like Laguna Seca. There's a lot more grass and sausage curbs and whatnot. So the state of the race right now, Max Lupfer leading by 3.8 seconds. Matthew Thompson still doing a good job to hold on to second. Alex Albert in third. Hurley and Chris Knisley are going to battle over fourth and fifth. And I think John Hurley's just managed to take that one away from Mr. Knisley, potentially. A lot of different Champ Car teams represented across our grid here. Max Lupfer, I'm not sure, has made it out to the track with Champ Car, but of course, Alex Albert representing Team Hujas. John Hurley on the paint scheme there with a little bit of Danger Racing. And Chris Knisley's got some support from the Voodoo guys watching along as well.
Yeah, Max Lupfa's looking to make his first Champ Car start, I think, with a little bit of help from the prize on this here series, which is why he's
How's about this? Locked up, missed the bus stop for Alex Albert. John Hurley swoops around the outside. Chris Knisley's going to come through as well. There's got to be a slowdown or something for Alex Albert there. He is really on the back foot. The defending champ, the points leader, and the person we probably look to take the win, run a flawless race here. He's heading for pit road.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what could have caused that. Maybe jumping the curbs or something early on caused some damage, because there's no way that he's making it on fuel from here, right?
Well, no, I think it's definitely possible. Like we talked about, fixed setup in this league means everyone's starting with a limited amount of fuel, but we haven't restricted the fuel tank. There's just a starting maximum number of gallons of fuel there, so it's possible he could fill her all the way up to the top, potentially get home from here, but that is not the strategy he'd want to follow, knowing he started on the front row.
Well, and his tires are definitely going to be suffering by the end of the race too, but you know what, Alex is a smart racer, so I wonder if he's decided, hey, there's too much drama in this pack. I want some fresh air. I want to be all alone and put in some fast laps. So we'll see what it looks like by the time he gets back. As we see, who is that? Aaron Thorpe taking a real wide line in that green and yellow number 42. Hasn't had a slowdown though. Oh, and right behind him, we saw Jay Sofianek spinning it around. Managed to dodge the tires, but that's going to cost him some time too. People making mistakes all up and down the field.
Yeah, that's one of those corners you can be forgiven for messing up a little bit, because it's a super curved braking zone. The track just tightens and tightens and tightens. And if there's one thing that this race car doesn't like, it's turning while it's braking. In fact, it doesn't like doing two of anything at the same time. Accelerating and turning, it doesn't like. Braking and turning, it's not a fan of either. So that is one of those corners you can be more forgiven for messing up. It's the flat 90-degree left-handers coming off the banking where people are just misjudging the speed they're carrying in. So your leader, Max Lupfer's just set the fastest lap of the race. He is pushing on, 6 seconds clear of Matthew Thompson, and then third place. What a battle they got going on there.
Yeah, and he's 2 seconds faster on that last lap than the guys in second and third. Those guys, Justin Hall and Alex Albert, really need to find some clear air, Simon Fullweather too, if they want to have a hope of competing with Max Lupfer in this one.
Here's the super speedway draft. John Hurley being slipstreamed by Chris Knisley. Aaron Thorpe getting the double toe is going to come right at them. On the infield now, and Hurley and Knisley going to go door to door. Bit wide from Knisley. Aaron Thorpe might take that as his opportunity.
He slams the door on Justin Hall instead there.
So Aaron Thorpe in fifth, currently the only driver running where they qualified, because Lupfer's up 3 spots, Thompson's up 4, Hurley's up 4, Knisley's up 5, and Justin Hall, regrettably, down 3 positions from his grid spot. But it's all shaping up to change once again through the infield here. 4 cars covered by under a second.
These guys are definitely delivering on the promise that those qualifying times had at this point.
Absolutely. Wiggle putting the power down from Chris Knisley. Thorpe still under pressure from Hall. Hurley wide through the turn that leads them back onto the oval. And it's more than a mile here. Absolutely flat out, slipstreaming off the car in front. Well down on the apron there.
I'm going back through my mental record book there. is this a track the ChampCar races at regularly?
Yeah, every year, around about this time of the year, Auto Club Speedway Road Course.
I got to put this one on my list because, God, you got to be flying by the time you get into this
There,
infield.
contact, a little bit of a nudge from Chris Knisley on John Hurley. Hurley's going to spin around broadside in the track.
Oh,
Chris Knisley's going to take that
collects
spot.
Justin Hall too.
Yeah, now Knisley facing the wrong way as well. That was the biggest braking zone on the circuit, and everyone just sailing in there a little bit too hot once again.
You know, I've been looking for justifications for, you know, the amount of difficulties that our drivers are having. The track temp is down about, 8-10 degrees Fahrenheit from where it was in qualifying. I wonder if that's catching some people out. The air temp as well down a few degrees. That's about the only thing that I could figure. Either that or they did a lot of laps in practice and put a lot of rubber down, and all of a sudden all that's gone. But yeah, man, we're seeing a lot of mistakes. That's for sure. And somehow, despite that, Simon Foweather, Chris Knisley, and Jay Sofianek are all glued together again.
Yeah, Knisley's sort of got it going again, but finds himself a bit further down. Sofianek and pole sitter Simon Foweather for company. Simon Foweather back in 8th place still is a bit of a surprise to me. But now coming onto the banking once again, they hit those poor defenseless traffic cones in every single direction, and Knisley is going to jump down onto pit road as well. Interesting.
Yeah, he must be making the same decision as Alex there, saying, hey, I want to get out of this traffic. This is a problem. But interestingly enough, I'm looking at the clock and the timing screen, and I'm not seeing the kind of pace that Alex Albert would need to be competitive at the end of this race. Last time by a 1:47.5, it's a respectable lap, but it's not making ground on Max Lupfa and his 46.8 last time by.
Yeah, Lupfa's in a world of his own right now, isn't he? Putting in 146 while everyone else is in the 49s, 50s, and Alex Albert in a 147. So it's shaping up well for Max Lupfa's lead, and you're exactly right. Alex Albert not doing what he'd quite need to be putting an undercut on. Knisley is putting on tyres at this stop right now, so maybe that's his strategy. Go for a little bit of undercut. You know that the tyres sort of drop away, and then they probably reach a little bit of a plateau in this kind of weather. If it was super hot, you'd keep burning them away. I think the difference between the tyres on lap 2 and the tyres on lap 8 is significant, but after there, they probably don't fall too far.
Well, and for the Alex Albert supporters out there, 46.9 last time by, so maybe there is something to this strategy. We'll see what it looks like in 45 minutes.
Indeed, we will. Regrettably, he is a minute 20 seconds behind leader Max Lupfa. Now, it's a pretty costly pit road here because of how fast everyone's going on the banking of the super speedway, and apparently a pretty slow pit road limit here as well. So those two things together, plus the blocked garden hose rate of fuel filling for this car and the amount of fuel it sips through, so the amount of fuel you need to take. All those things there combine to quite a costly pit stop.
Yeah, 35 miles an hour down that pit lane. How to feel like 10 miles an hour with guys flying by you at full throttle.
Yeah, 35 miles an hour is a real champ car pit lane speed, isn't it?
Yeah, and I hear they're enforcing that with radar guns these days too, or maybe even GPS boxes in the flags. I don't know. But looks like things have calmed down a little bit in our top 5. Max Lupfa, of course, driving away with it.
Yeah, I think the next place to look is going to be second, because Matthew Thompson has had plenty of clean air to just run his own race. But Aaron Thorpe, now a bit of clean air as well, is hunting him down. So Thompson really benefited when everyone was battling over third place a couple seconds behind him. He could scamper away without, the worry of a driver behind locking up and sending him sailing. But now he's under pressure from Aaron Thorpe, who was solidly a second and a half faster last lap around. And about now is when it comes home to roost. Who looks after their tyres better? Because if you've been throwing it around, locking them up here and there, putting a lot of heat in the tyres, you'll start to feel that now compared to someone who was a bit smoother for the first 15 minutes. I think Matthew Thompson knows that. He's staying high. Aaron Thorpe goes low into the second position.
Yeah, absolutely. But it certainly does show the benefit of clean air. I don't think even I was cognizant of how much time those guys that were battling there were losing, just going back and forth with each other. Either way, Matthew Thompson slips back a little bit, and now Justin Hall is starting to look like he might be making a run this time through the infield on Matthew Thompson.
Yeah, precisely. He's shaping up for this one as well. As you see a lot of them just trying to trail a bit of brake to make this car turn. And it's so easy to lock up one of the inside tires with the amount of body roll and suspension travel for this car. The inside tire, I'm sure, gets very, very light. So therefore becomes very easy to lock up. And as you drag it across the road surface, that puts a lot of heat into the tire. And that is where they start to wear out. So Thompson under pressure from Hall. Huge lockup. Dragging a bit of a slide as well. Hall is going to start lining up Matthew Thompson for a move. Flat out, but single line through that little chicane there. Now Hall's going to look to the inside. About a car length in it there. He goes down the inside. That becomes the outside. Not an easy move for either of these guys, but Hall gets left the space and he's back into third. Or is he? That was so close to contact there. Thompson just stepping on the brake pedal a little bit harder so he didn't tag the rear of Justin Hall, swooping around the outside.
And cleaning out those cones as they have been every single lap. I think we got
dedicated marshals.
Yeah, we gotta keep track of what kind of distance they're getting on those things. I want to see a record, you know. Let's get the stats guy on that.
Get the long jump record.
Yeah, well, and I think just watching that battle through the infield, you can really tell how much of a driver's car this SS actually is, because those cars are sideways, locking up a tire. They're pushing it to the limit, and they're able to control it even when it steps out over the limit, and it's part of what really makes the charm of this car on a road course. You can push it so hard and not wreck, but you definitely pay for it in terms of lap time on the single lap and lap time on the course of the race if you're abusing those tires, right? So a real special vehicle on the sim that doesn't, I think, get quite the love that it deserves. Just like in ChampCar, how we don't see quite as many big V8s as I'd like to see. I think they're fun platforms and just a little bit stymied by the fuel rules, right?
You rewriting the BCCR?
Yeah, that's actually what they've had me doing for the last couple of weeks.
No, it's taking so long.
Yeah,
there we go though. I mean, I know what you're saying about this car. It starts off with some pretty long braking zones, and then as you go, lap after lap after lap on the run, you really got to keep backing up your braking zone, long braking distances, and a real soft touch while also trying to wrangle the life out of this thing by the scruff of its neck.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm looking down in 7th place here, and I'm seeing our leader Simon Foweather. He's taking that high line right behind Jay Sophianek, and it looks to me like he's taking a slowdown coming out of the infield there. So he's going to have to give up a little bit as he heads into turn 1 here. But he was right up on Jay's back bumper, and I'd expect to see him back caught up again as soon as they get back into the infield here. We're going to ride along with Simon here as he tries to chase down Jay and really try and give you a sense of how challenging this course is. The flatness, folks might say that makes the track a little bit easier, but there's also a really impressive lack of braking markers wherever you go. Not even like pylons, despite the several hundred they've used to line the edges of the track, there's none for braking markers. This place is really, really a task of memorizing your sight picture to make the perfect entry into the corner. Gaining some ground through this left-right switchback, and then going into this challenging braking zone that we have here at turn 8. Make the apex as tight as you can and get back to throttle early, and now head straight flat out at this non-chicane, especially when the off-track zones are as far away as they are. And again, into another almost blind braking zone, no markers to speak of. Drive through the cloud of smoke from a car in front. And let's see if Simon can make this last set of corners here cleanly and get the run he wants.
You ever had that, Devon? Someone locks up right in front of you and you go through a huge cloud of tire smoke and it stings your eyes?
I usually run with my visor closed, but...
Same. It ended up underneath my visor. I had to pop the visor to get all of this tire smoke out from my eyes.
Oof. No, that sounds a little bit brutal. The closest I can come up with is the rain gutter on our car draining into the open window and spraying into my eyes every time it rains. Just reminds me I need to go weld that hole up next time I'm on the garage.
Our broadcast directors had the same thing, except burning oil smoke instead of tire smoke. So that's probably even worse, because it probably wouldn't dissipate as easily. None of those particularly pleasant. None of those things people actually need to worry about on the ChampCar iRacing series, though. What they've got to worry about with locking up the tires is it isn't the smoke that comes off them, but the grip that leaves them.
Yeah, especially out here. Now, just for the folks at home that are playing the stopwatch game, we are still seeing Alex Albert making up some ground through the field, our championship leader. He's run a 1:47, so he's making up ground on most everyone except for the top 3. Max Lupfa last time by at 46.6, Aaron Thorpe at 47.0, and Justin Hall at 46.9. So some definite pace at the front of the field. We'll see how long that holds if people are taking care of their tires or not. The real truth of that matter won't be heard for another 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, and keeping an eye on that gap, Alex Albert to Max Lupfa, it's a minute 18 seconds now. So it's come down 1 second, but it's still, a minute plus another third there, despite the pace Alex is finding in spots. We're also keeping an eye on second and third here, where Hall is going to start catching Thorpe, which is the...
Yeah. Oh, and I'd say counterpoint to what you're saying, Dave. Alex Albert only spent a minute 13 on the pit lane, which would mean that if Max Lupfa pits, and takes the same amount of time as Alex, then he would have about a 4-second gap back to Alex right now. So closer than it might look, even though they're pretty far apart on track.
And then it's always tough to gauge what the actual pit lane loss delta is, because, I see that number like you do. That's measured from pit in to pit out. Pit out is a little bit further down the road than pit in is. So some tracks, the actual loss is less than that because you've traveled the length of the pit lane. And other tracks like here, I think it might be slightly more, because even once you've left pit exit, you're not up to speed for the whole remainder of the rest of the straight and the banked turns 1 and 2. So then there's loss outside of the pit lane as you're leaving as well. So that one will actually be pretty close. Last lap for Lupfa must have had a little bit of a problem because it was a 1:49. Alex Albert burning off some of the fuel, taking advantage of the track cooling off, found a 1:46. So he's at least out of that pack nonsense, able to run his own times, and he's running them very well.
Yeah, and it's going to be a real a real stopwatchy kind of race here, especially if Lupa gives up a few more of those. Those guys are going to be right on top of each other when that pit stop comes up. But you mentioned or observed correctly that this is one of those tracks on iRacing where you actually can't exit the pit lane fully until you get onto the back straight. So these cars are forced to stay down on the apron right until they get to the exit of the second corner of NASCAR 2.
Pardon me, it's heating up for second here. Justin Hall, I think that time around, had a very good toe off Aaron Thorpe on the speedway section. Through the double lefts they go, and they manage to make both apexes and use a little bit of the paved stuff on the exit, as you're allowed to do. The track flicks left and right and into the ever-tightening right-hander here. It's been a bit of a bogey corner for quite a few people. Tiny bit of a hint of a lockup, and very wide though from Thorpe. So that's going to help Hall get better power down, as well as just the tighter line through there. So pressure was on, and Thorpe just didn't get the braking quite right.
Yeah, and I'm keeping back an eye a little further in the field between Jay Sofianek and Simon Foweather. Those two are locked. Simon Foweather having made up the time that he lost earlier, and it looks like he's going to try an over-under or some sort of combination move here on Jay Sofianek as they head towards the back section of the track.
Yeah, so battles are on once again. Not quite the craziness that we had for a little while there, but well and truly race on throughout the field.
Another interesting consideration here is probably the possibility of doing some fuel saving. I didn't do much testing this time around, but I would suspect that with a couple big straightaways we have into big braking zones, there's probably a fair amount of fuel that can be saved on a per lap basis here, right?
Why are you asking me like I'd know? As the tires go off as well, you know, the braking distances get longer, so you can also try and save some fuel there. Sofianek and Foweather, yeah, I've got my eyes on that. Foweather's going to have to go around the outside here. Sofianek's parked it to the middle, but gave him plenty of space. But in the end, it's still close once again, but no move could be made through the left-right on to the infield. Foweather's going to have another look at the double lefts here, but that tight line probably not going to help him a whole lot.
He was looking there from the outside, and I think Sofianek could see that move developing and had no desire to be a part of it. He was blocking that inside line pretty healthily as they were heading into that one. And again, with the defensive line both locking up and contact there, luckily for them, they're both able to keep it under control, but Foweather's quickly losing patience with this battle here, I think. Really gives up some time, though, when he looks outside into that chicane. New fastest lap of the race that time by Alex Albert, a 46.3.
You're going to take that back?
Max Lupfa, who's just put in a 46.2. So
track's cooling off. These guys are, picking up the pace, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Gap from Lupfa to Albert down to 1 minute 14. So that's actually going to be pretty damn close now.
Oh, no. And Foweather's gone back to the outside wall. I got to think that he's got another slowdown. Oh, and it's so touchy because all the lap times on the outside of that turn there, like turn 15. And then if you go just a smidge too wide, iRacing is not forgiving. You know, there's the corner marshals aren't going to miss your cheating, and they're going to give you that slowdown penalty 2 seconds every single time. So now Simon Foweather gives all that time up, and he has to get back up to Jay and then try and find his way around him again.
It's not like North Korea to try to, you know, go across some borders. Backs everyone away, though. Respectful members of the international community as they are, but a minute and a half away from the half distance. And if a lot of people are thinking about taking tires at their stops just because of how long the fuel takes in this car. So if you were going to take tires, you'd probably be thinking about at the halfway point, surely try and get a bit of an undercut on it.
Yeah, I think this pretty much has to be a tire stop, right? At this track, just with how long the fuel is going to take. So I imagine we'll see pretty much everyone taking tires at the stop, and I think that will be a very important part of the battle between Alex and Max here, because if Max gets tires that are 30, 40, 50 laps fresher, well, probably 30 laps fresher than Alex's, that might be a dagger in Alex's heart and his hopes to win this race.
I tell you what would be interesting is if Lutfer came out of the pit stop with new tires just a couple seconds behind Alex Albert, and then the sun came back out and dried up all the rain and heated up the track. There's a couple ways this could go that are interesting, that are interesting for our lead battle.
Well, we might not even need that, because Lufa's just had another issue, and I don't no shade on Max Lufa. He's a very fast driver, but I do recall when we were racing at not Auto Club. It's not called Sears Point anymore. What's it called these days?
Sonoma.
When we were racing at Sonoma, Max Lufa was real quick, got the lead, and then made a couple mistakes and donated it right back to Alex, I want to say. And so he's got to keep his focus on keeping those lap times really consistent and really fast, because Alex Albert's not a guy that gives anything up when he's on the sim racing track, that's for sure.
Second and third is hot once again between Thorpe and Hall. We're going to have to keep our eyes on pit road now, as well, as we've passed the halfway point of this race.
And of course, because those two ahead of him are hotting up, we've got Jay Sofianek and Simon Fogle getting pretty close again too. So I'll interject if I see him move.
Absolutely. Thorpe and Hall are both staying out. It's interesting. I actually thought Justin Hall would be one of the people with something to gain from going for the slightly earlier stop.
He is close enough now, though, that Justin Hall really likes to play the fuel game. So I wonder if he's doing the 60% throttle and just cruising behind Aaron, trying to shorten up that pit stop a little bit for himself.
John Hurley's on the lane. That's interesting for him. That's the strategy he's going for. But meanwhile, Hall looked to the inside, decided against it. But just the process of looking there, might tempt the other driver into braking a little bit deep, and that's where you can gain a lot. And Hall gives Thorpe just a little shot to the bumper on the exit there. Just finding a little bit more traction, but not finding anywhere to go with it.
Simon Follweather's lining up Jay Sofianek. He got a real good draft on the front straightaway, and yeah, I think this one's over unless Follweather might have cut the course there again. He was on the inside of that cone that marks the apex of that corner. Hasn't lifted yet, though, so that might very well have been a clean pass. The lines are a little bit closer to suggestions here in some areas than they are hard and fast rules like they are on the back half of the track.
Yeah, it's a turn-by-turn basis, depending on how the marshals are feeling, almost, isn't it?
It sure seems like it. And a slow one last time by for Alex, 47.9. Justin Hall, yeah, gets that spot. And we'll see. Maybe he's decided this is the lap. He's going to take that pit stop.
Could be. John Hurley, 33 seconds of service. That's what Chris Knisley had as well. I think that's how long it takes to change a set of tyres for this thing.
And Knisley's taken the spot from John Hurley, so that hasn't paid off. And sure enough, we're seeing Aaron Thorpe and Rachel Cossack both heading into the pit lane. Golly, that's slow, 35 miles an hour. And now we'll see what this race is really all about. Alex Albert coming through the infield. And we'll see where he shakes out into the top few here. Max Lufa, of course, still on track lapping. 46.3 last time by, still running very fast laps.
Yeah, right now, as they're both on the track, Lutfer's back out to having 1 minute 15 seconds in his pocket. So he's brought back just a little bit of that. It's right on the knife edge.
Yeah, and actually, Max Lufa is caught up in some traffic. John Hurley's just come out, and he's right in front of him, leaving a big trail of smoke in front of him. And I'm not sure he's going to get out of the way. No obligation to, of course. Blue flag's just informational in this series. But, yeah, okay, it looks like John Hurley's trying to stick to the right, but well, now he's cutting back across the nose. So Lupa might decide enough is enough with his traffic, or he might decide to make a brave move. We'll see.
Right about now, in Lupfa's shoes, I'd be thinking about taking that pit stop now.
Totally.
Although it's very easy for him to pass on the banking if he does stay out. We will see what happens as your leader comes towards pit in, stays out on the banking. He's probably going to have to just tuck in underneath, pick up a head of speed, and use that to get around. Which time did he lose on this lap? I'd say about a second.
Yeah, all that. And Alex Albert tucks in another fast one as they come past Aaron Thorpe on the banking.
So Hurley's managed to undercut Thorpe in the process as well. Lutfer right at the bumper of John Hurley, going to look down the inside. He's down the inside. Did he brake early enough to make the corner? Does seem like it. A little bit more traffic though as well for Lutfer. I'm going to guess Rachel Kosick. Yes, it is.
Yeah, and Lutfer's got a lot of people in front of him. Kosick decides to give a lot of space for the race, though, and gets out of their way pretty quick. And we've also got another battle a little further down the field. David Palermo in 8th place and Andrew Kosick, presumably sibling or family member of Rachel.
I think we've got Kosick I think we've got Kosick the older and Kosick the younger, but I'm not sure. No confirmation on that.
Yeah, who knows? But David Palermo's been chasing down Kosick for the last couple laps. We'll see what it looks like as they head into the infield this next time by. Of course, keeping one eye on that pit stop that Max Luke has got to be making here soon enough, you've got to think, right?
Yeah, indeed. We're 25 minutes to go.
And Palermo, the way that car's squirming in the braking zone, looks like he's doing like Manji, and Kosick gets on the throttle pretty hard in front of him and spins up the outside tire. But it looks like both of them are keeping it pointed mostly the right way as they head into the turn number 5 there, 6. Real wide from Palermo on the exit, but manages to get it back on track. Alex Albert
surprised Max Lupfer stayed out, but so too of everyone in your top 5. So I think the fuel goes a little bit longer than maybe the tires do as Kosick and Palermo both locking up that inside tire. What I would give to not be a right front tire on one of these cars around this track every single lap.
Mm-hmm. And Palermo's lining up a move, getting squished real hard to the inside, but almost straight lines it into the side of Kosick, but manages to get the better run through. And yeah, it looks like he's taking that position pretty handily. And barring a big draft here, or slow down, because that's usually what happens when you take out those 5 cones, Palermo should have the position.
Kosick's going for pit in, so doesn't matter really. The drivers who haven't pitted yet, your leader Max Lutfer, Justin Hall in 2nd, Matthew Thompson 3rd, Simon Forward 4th, and David Palermo in 5th. Andrew Kosick now in 6th and on pit road.
Yeah, Matthew Thompson took a very exciting line on the way into the infield that time. That'll have cost him a 2.5 seconds as he jumped some curbs and chewed up some grass. But he's having a pretty solid race, all things considered. Qualified down in 6th place and now up in 3rd. And got to think that he's going to retain most of that through the pit stops. Might lose 1 or 2, but still ahead of where he was when he started the race. And all that just avoided some problems.
Going for his pit stop. Big lockup of the tires, trying to get it woed up to the pit lane speed limit, but I think he is good. It's Max Lutfer, the 688, going for his pit stop. And I wonder what he's going to do here, because some drivers have gone fuel and tires, taking them about 33 seconds. Some have gone fuel only, like Alex Albert, taking about 28 seconds. Justin Hall from 2nd also follows onto the pit road. So gone as long as he has. Maybe Lutfer is targeting that fuel only, cover off the same strategy as Alex Albert. I am super curious to know, but it's such a long, slow roll down the pit lane here for Max Lutfer looking for his pit crew. He finds them, stops in the box, and fuel and tires. And
Foweather's coming past the exit of the pit lane right now, so I think that promotes him up into 1st place, right? Though he hasn't hit yet.
Stopped yet.
Yeah. But Alex Albert is also getting through the back half of the track now, heading into 14, 15.
Lutfer's down off the jacks. And he's up to 27 seconds, about 30 seconds. So fuel's still going in. Managed to get the tires in the same time as the fuel. It's still going 36 seconds, 37 seconds. This is no good for Lutfer. Was he speeding on pit road?
That's the only thing that makes sense to me. Yeah, that's the only thing that makes sense to me. Because that's 10 extra seconds. It's 11 extra seconds relative to what Alex did. And I did notice that Lufa gave it another big jab of the brakes once he got into the pit lane. So that's the only thing that really parses to me is some kind of speeding penalty there. Either way, that's promoted Alex Albert. And it's going to be hard for those two, Max and Justin, to chase him down.
Yeah, Albert now 10 seconds clear of Max Lutfer, and so they were going to be close were it not for whatever on earth happened in that pit stop there for Max Lutfer. Very long stop compared to everyone else.
Yeah, that's second longest pit stop of the day there. The only one longer being Aaron Thorpe, who did a 44.8, and Max Lutfer 44.7, and that's compared to Alex's 28.4 and Justin Hall's 33.1. But Alex, on the other hand, is also the shortest by about 5 seconds. So it could be a question of fuel at the other end of this thing, too, for Alex. And this is not a pit lane where you want to do a splash and dash.
No, it's not. It's a splash, but it's definitely not a dash. Leader, well, was he leader? And now he's going to cycle backwards, but Simon Foweather on the lane, and that's going to mean that everyone has made their pit stop. Oh, Max Lutfer's did it. Max Lutfer sent that thing for a spin on the infield. Cold tires. He's made a mistake, and it's just falling apart for him again.
Well, that's real tough. Justin Hall now right on his bumper, and he'll see an opportunity from a driver that's made a couple mental mistakes in the last few laps here.
Alex Albert cycles back through to the lead. Max Lutfer still in second place, but Justin Hall just 1 second behind him. It's another 15 seconds back towards Chris Knisley. So I think we've worked out our likely podium contenders now.
Yeah, I think Foweather, Thompson, and Nicely are going to be in a pretty close battle here too. Nicely's going to have the edge, but Foweather had some pretty good pace early on in this race, so on fresh tires he might be able to drive his way back up there. And Thompson's going to be just ahead of him as they get into the infield.
Simon Foweather rejoining has had John Hurley sweep straight around the outside.
And you know,
back on there.
Alex Albert did get that big gap, but presumably he's still on original tires, right? So there's got to be some sort of cliff for those things at some point. And 18 minutes left on the clock. You got to wonder if that's gonna, if that's gonna come into play at some point, because he's locking those tires up hard, heading into the tight section at the end of the track here.
Calculator has me at about 11 laps to go right now. So if Lutfer makes those new tires work, he's still going to need to find, a second to a second and a half per lap against Alex Albert, not just, for a couple of laps, but on average across all of the laps, that kind of gain. So
I mean,
he'd need Alex Albert to hit a cliff that I'm just not sure exists in those tires.
The last few laps for Alex have been in the 47s, though, like high 47s. So, and that's clean. That's no traffic. And this time by, Lutfer ran a 46.7, and that's first full lap on those new tires. So, it'll be a hard thing to do, but I'm not going to rule it out before we get to the end of the race here.
So I'm just intensely frustrated in my soul that Max Lutfer has kind of squandered this great opportunity he had. He's clearly got a bit more speed right now. Whatever on earth, what the pit stop was, very scruffy outlap. he had everything he needed to be in a good position to take the fight here, and just hasn't had the focus or something.
Yeah, well, and it's tough when you get out on your own. You really have to focus on hitting the marks and all that good stuff. And it's definitely not a muscle that I've got very well. I can't count the number of races I've thrown away by, trying out a new breaking point about 3/4 of the way into a stint, for example. But anyway, I'm watching Simon Fullweather here in that number 7. What is it? Not North Korea, West Korea. Anyway, car chasing down John Hurley just ahead of him in the number 11. And I have a feeling that Fullweather's going to be making a move pretty quickly here, as the closing rate between these guys has been pretty quick.
He's Kim Jong-un stoppable, the pace he's going right now across the chicane, really hopping it on the curbs, but his Achilles heel has been this corner onto the speedway here, where he's run it across the track limits a couple times and had to give up a handful of time for it. Also shaping up for second.
Yeah, and I was just going to mention that Justin Hall's got a bit of a run here after having to give up some time down the straightaway. He's got a big draft. Not sure there's a move in the braking zone here. Whew. And he gets real close to Max Lufa that time. These two will be battling for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, for sure. Double left-handers here in the ocean of tarmac on the infield at Auto Club Speedway. It's a tighter line and a better run, I think, from Justin Hall, who's still wearing his Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle suit there. So he's not going to have to change that one for Halloween soon. Huge lock-up from Lutfer. Still makes the apex, though. Seen plenty sail wide. That's no good. He's not absorbing the pressure well at all. Hall is right at his rear bumper. Swings wide for the inside.
And this will be a tough one.
Yeah.
Oh, and they're real close.
Luke for not giving up on that one, but on the tight line there, couldn't carry the speed. He gave nothing away, but Justin Hall just managed to find the speed around the outside there. But hey, onto the speedway we go once again.
And these guys are both competing for championship points, so they might be a little bit away from Alex Albert, but these are definitely important points for them. Both of them with 1 win apiece, and Alex Albert, the only other guy with wins in the series. So these two are battling for second place overall, but definitely for a chance to have a go at Alex, should he ever miss.
With the speed, but nowhere to take it, tries to set up the reverse of what Justin Hall did to him a lap ago, right at the rear bumper, looking for the inside of the double lefts. Backs out of it, but he's just driving, showing the nose in this little battle.
Yeah, and if you're Alex Albert, this is exactly what you want to see, because these guys are both costing each other half a second here or there. And Alex Albert limping along on those 55 or whatever it is. I think 26 lap old tires is definitely paying or enjoying the little reprieve he's getting here.
I was going to say 55 laps is a bit of an exaggeration. This is a big course. We're not doing huge lap counts.
Yeah, my steering wheel perfectly blocks the lap counter.
Fantastic excuse. So Alex Albert back into the lead, and a comfortable lead it is in the closing bit of this race, 15 seconds ahead of a battle for second. And then Chris Knisley's got his Carol Baskin paint Tiger King all on its lonesome in fourth, and then Hurley and Fower, they're still going back and forth for 5th place.
I'd say that paint job looks a little more pro the Tiger King than it does Carol Baskin once you get up close, but I see where you're going with that. Either way, Simon Foweather's dropped back behind John Hurley after taking that position away early. Wonder if another off track has cost him that. And I'm hearing from the producer, yeah, sure enough, he ran a little bit wide and got that slowdown again.
Lupfer just kind of pushed Justin Hall off the track there. Justin super deep, locking it all up, coming through the sequence that takes them off the banking. Hall so super slowed up in front of Lupfer there, and Lupfer just helps him on his merry way off the track, and Max Lupfer up into second there. In any other circumstance, I'd be worried about that being fair, but Hall was really locked up. I think he was going off track on his own anyway.
Yeah, you can get away with a move like that in these cars because the bumpers and the body panels are made out of steel. It won't cost you too much, but luckily for them, it was these cars they were using. Alex Alberts just had to dispatch some traffic, goes past Rachel Cossack, and is lining up what looks like Andrew Cossack just ahead of him. So hopefully for his sake, that hasn't cost him too much. Hopefully for the sake of the race, it's cost him a lot.
Yeah, Max Lupfer would hope that it slows him up about 13 and a half seconds, I think is the number Max Lupfer is looking for. But regrettably, not getting 10 minutes to go. It's going to be about 6 laps. As you see, they've just crossed the line.
But somehow, despite the contact and everything, all the drama on that lap, Max Lupfer still managed to run a 46.9 to Alex's 48.6. So, he's got a second and a half that time. But I don't think he's had it consistently through this stint.
It's just because Max Lupfer found, an extra brake pedal in the shape of Justin Hall on that lap. This time he put a wheel on the grass there, which didn't help his progress.
Just really pitched to Alex Albert, put Justin Hall's face on the brake pedal on the real car. Bet you that'd get people stepping later.
Your genius knows no bounds. That is the kind of innovation we need.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Well, things have calmed down through the field, but looking outside the top 5, we got Foweather in 6th, Thorpe in 7th, Matthew Thompson in 8th, Jay Sofianek in 9th, David Palermo in 10th, and then Andrew Cossack and Rachel Cossack rounding out our top 12. And as we mentioned, every single person here are going to be scoring points today as long as they finish the race. Actually, I believe as long as they finish 50% of the race today, because we pay points all the way out to 20th place, and everyone's got a shot just for showing up at that free entry into a ChampCar real world event.
Yeah, some events for 2021 getting announced on the calendar as well. So you could start making your wish list for sure about which. I'll steal the phrase. Which of the bucket list road racing courses in North America you might want to hit. With Alex Albert going past Andrew Cossack not long ago, put both of the Cossacks off the lead lap, but everyone else remains on the lead lap for now.
And can I just report a fast lap? Max Lupfer just put in a 45.8 last time by. Whew, that's 2 whole seconds, almost 2 whole seconds faster than Alex Albert that time. So, yeah, he might have found an extra gear here. Rachel Cossack has not helped him out, though, there. We'll see. Yeah, making a lot of room for Max Lupfer. Almost too much room. But Rachel keeps it over the wall, and Max Lupfer continues on his merry way. 11 and a half seconds separating him and Alex now, but only 7 minutes to go on the race clock. So it'll be pretty tough. But never say die.
Well, the real question mark here is Alex Albert pedaling that thing home? Because he's pit stop drastically shorter than everyone else. You've got to assume that a lot of the time that Lupfer's pulled out of him lately is Albert really desperately trying to save a little bit of fuel so he doesn't need another stop. The way it's going now, 4 laps to go, Max Lupfer needs more than 2 seconds a lap to catch now. But if there's any cough or splutter on the way to the line for Albert, that's where Lupfer needs to be in position to be able to strike if Alex Albert runs into any trouble with that fuel gauge.
Well, and from back half of the course, it's pretty much all uphill all the way to the start-finish line. Not hugely uphill, but definitely uphill enough that, you'll be fighting pretty hard if you run out of fuel on the way back to the line.
Yeah, it's not like running out at the top of the corkscrew at Laguna Seca and just keep the clutch in and you'll be all right.
Yeah, you can run the starter on these things for a little while, even in the sim, but that won't get you too far.
And it won't get you anywhere quickly, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we should hop on board with Alex Albert and see if we can hear him trying to fuel save.
I reckon if he's got to save a lot of fuel, the data would tell the story as well. I reckon the big places is coming off the banking and into the infield, because that's the biggest braking zone on the course. And then all these other little places through the infield, a couple of braking zones there. You just roll your way through it.
Yeah, when I hopped on board with him heading into the last set of corners there, I heard him make a big lift into the last 5 corners or whatever it is as they head through the sea of cones. So definitely trying to save some fuel there, and I suspect we'll hear another equally big lift into the turn number 3 here.
Yeah, I think he's almost been rolling off the throttle on his way through.
Yeah. He lifts on the exit too.
The good thing about trying to do a bit of lift and coast in this car, though, is that all the mass it's got and the entire lack of anything to speak of for downforce it's got, you lift off the throttle and the thing just keeps sailing like a brick. So, it's not like driving a Formula car with wings and whatnot everywhere. You roll off the throttle and drag just takes your speed from you. So you can give away a second a lap and save a lot of fuel.
Max Lupfer has had to give back a slowdown there on his way into the infield. He's had some issues. Alex Albert locks it up pretty big time going through turn number 7 there, though, too. So, trading blows to these guys. 9.2 seconds between them. Max Lupfer locks up the tire for about 250 feet on the way into that corner. But it also looked to me a little bit like Alex Albert's tires were starting to give up. Even on the exit of the corners, he was not putting down the power through this last section.
No, the fuel's a worry. The tires have basically gone since the start. Even if he changed them at his pit stop, that was only 2 laps into the race. It's a lot of the cones on his way through the final sector, and with just 2 laps to go, he'll be counting backwards on that fuel gauge for sure.
Oh no.
8 seconds is his lead.
Man, and Lupfer's run wide, but I think he's dodged the slowdown. Boy, they're sure pushing it out there. 7.5 seconds at the line. And Justin Hall just lurking. Still there. Still in contention.
Absolutely. Pretty consistent point scorer in this championship as well. That's why he finds himself in a decent position. He's been on the podium a lot of times. He's only taken 1 win, but he's had plenty of podiums and been there and thereabouts.
Chris Nicely and John Hurley also getting pretty close. Full weather too. A second between each of them for 4th, 5th, and 6th place. So a lot of places yet to be decided with 2 minutes to go on the race clock, or about 2 laps. I almost wonder if Alex was on the verge of adding an extra lap and maybe figured he needed to back off enough to not. Because we'd be kind of...
I think if he was about... I think he skirted that extra lap by about 10 seconds because it was 2 to go with 1 minute 46 lap times when there was 3 minutes 15 or so on the clock. If there'd been 3 minutes 30 left, we might have gone 3 laps from there. But yeah, it's always interesting. You get to the end of these races trying to work out exactly how many laps 60 minutes is going to be, and sometimes there is room to game it just a little bit, especially if you've got 10 seconds in the lead and some kind of worry about your fuel consumption. Better to give up a little bit of time and not have to do that extra lap.
Alex runs a 46.6 that time, so maybe he's feeling a little bit better about the fuel.
You're feeling pretty good about having taken the white flag. One to go. Just got to one more time through every corner on the infield, and the checkered flag could be waiting for him once again.
Still doing that big lift, but he's really spun it. He's caught it and saved it on the way into the infield, but that's a big loser. That's a lot of time. He's just given up.
Heart in mouth, I thought he was going to loop it, but he held on to it. It's cost him a second or two. It would have absolutely roasted those tires if we had to go any longer. Lupfer is still 7 seconds behind, though.
Yeah, it looked like it cost a second and a half on the live relative. No more of those.
No, so what about the poor inside right tire for that bend? A little bit. Pushes it onto the grass he goes. Alex Albert knows this is the last lap. You can see he's driving it like the last lap.
6 second gap. Just needs to have fuel to get to the line.
Exactly. Through this little bus stop for the final time, and then the left-hander that you just need to keep it within the limits. And I think he just about does that, sends 1 or 2 cones flying, but other than that, the car looked like it was on the track. So after 60 minutes at Auto Club Speedway for round 12 of the ChampCar iRacing Series, Alex Albert is going to take yet another win this season. Further back, Max Lupfer is looking at second place in a race that he really was in control of for about 45 minutes of the hour. Justin Hall completes the podium in third.
Hurley nicely and Fullweather coming to the line. Still a second apart. Yeah. I'm not sure anything's going to change here as they come to the line, but 3 more racers that have been really battling real close all the way through this one. Is nicely out of fuel. Fullweather's jumped out to the outside. And Fullweather takes 5th at the line from Nicely, who just started sputtering. That's heartbreak.
That was a photo finish there, right at the line. Knisley's Tiger ran out of...
I'll rescue food from this one. Aaron Thorpe crossing the line here in 7th place. Matthew Thompson not far behind for 8th. Locks it up and crosses the line. And Jay Sofianek and David Palermo look like they'll be rounding out the top 10 pretty comfortably in their positions.
Yep, those are the last cars on the lead lap, Sofianek and Palermo.
And everyone's got enough fuel.
Yep, indeed. David Palermo crosses the line to bring to a close the race here from Auto Club Speedway. I'm seeing Knisley actually get dropped a couple more positions. He was in the photo finish with Fullweather, but now the results get finalized. He's back in 8th, like he's picked up a penalty, maybe carrying a slowdown penalty across the start-finish line or something. So that's a post-race penalty I've just seen get applied to Chris Knisley, drop him about 30 seconds or so. So now we can run through those results as they're finalized. Actually, a bit of post-race tech drama for Chris Knisley. It's not post-race tech, it's a time penalty being applied. But the winner was Alex Albert by a spooky 6.666 seconds from Max Lupfer, who took the fastest lap of the race. Justin Hall on the podium once again from Florida. John Hurley in the Danger Racing car in 4th. Then 5th was Simon Fullweather. He thought he was going to get that drag race with Chris Knisley. He crossed the line first. In the end, he didn't even need to. It's Aaron Thorpe in 6th, Thompson in 7th, and big chunk of time penalty post-race on the Wynham Dynam Racing car for Chris Knisley, drops him all the way back into 8th. Safianek in 9th, Palermo in 10th, last car on the lead lap as we saw. Andrew Cosick 11th, Rachel Cosick in 12th. Sean Saputra, Philip Hayden did not take the start of the race. And that was our field from Auto Club.
I want to see if we can get anyone in here for an interview.
Absolutely. There's a couple hanging around. I'm going to go third. Nope, we're going to go first, second, third. Never mind what I think, because our leader, points leader and winner, Alex Albert, is with us. Tell us about that strategy with the early stop. Was your hand forced on that one?
Yeah, I had to come in for a stop. Took some damage, I guess, to the under tray, lap 2 maybe, and there's some kind of bollard or something there on the inside of the second apex going back into the infield, and the car was just losing pace. I couldn't keep up on the straightaways, and I knew that I had to take care of that sooner than later, so went ahead and made the decision to pit early, go ahead and gas it up with what I thought would be enough. Ended up needing to save a little to get there, but yeah, overall all worked out.
What about this course? There might be some changes for Auto Club Speedway in its future. I'm not sure people are going to miss this road course a whole lot, but what do you think?
It's not the most iconic road course in the world, but it's got a couple of fun sections. That the second 2 turns in the infield, the double left-hander, that's pretty fun, and then there's a high-speed kink leading into a decreasing radius right that I really enjoy. And then that last sector is pretty fun too. It's kind of autocross type of setup. So I think it's a pretty fun course. It's not my favorite, but all in all, it's pretty good for a Roval.
If I had $1 for every time someone locked up in this 60-minute race, I could afford to change tires every second stop at Indianapolis. What were you doing with the brake bias out there? There's some straight line braking zones, some curved braking zones, and no one's going to call the braking or suspension particularly sophisticated on this street stock.
Yeah, I'd move the brakes more towards the rear than I typically would, because the really hard braking is done in a straight line, and then you need to use the brakes to really get the car to rotate in that decreasing radius that I was speaking of earlier. If you have the brakes too far forward there, when you unload the front tire as you're turning, it really causes a lot of lockup. So I found that you need to run the brakes farther back there to get the car to rotate, keep from locking up your tires, getting them too hot and greasy.
And questions got to be asked, because we're on the home stretch here. You can start counting the drop weeks. What are your thoughts with the championship? Another win is obviously what's desired. Maybe if you do pick up the win, you can tell the wife, see, it's not just a bottomless money pit, this racing business.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, that's why we're here, is to collect the race wins and the championships. I haven't looked at the stats lately, but it would be pretty cool if we could get 12 wins in the 12 rounds that are counted. Not sure how many we have so far, but it's good that we have our 12 rounds in, and now we can just worry about trying to replace our worst finishes in the last 4 rounds.
Well, congrats once again. A little bit of a come from behind win out in California. Who are you going to thank?
I want to thank my wife for this one. Couldn't do it without all her support. And so, thanks, baby. See you when I get home.
Short and disgustingly sweet from our winner, Alex Albert there. I think I saw Max Lutford disappearing out of the back of the paddock. Not sure he wants to have a word with us after that one, which is maybe a little bit understandable. But Devon, we go to the next step on the podium. Justin Hall brought it home in third.
Yeah, and I'm standing here with Justin, and he looks pooped after a long race in that car.
Yeah, that was quite the race. Ever since lap 1, where basically none of us knew where the track limits are, didn't have any brake markers. It was a tough one.
Looked like you and Max were having a pretty solid battle there, though, towards the second half of the race.
Yeah, it was fun going back and forth a little bit with him. Ended up catching a couple of slowdowns and making some mistakes, which ultimately, after that, he got his stuff together and he was basically gone.
Well, and after that race, it looks like you've locked yourself in or moved yourself up to second place in the points championship. How are you feeling about the rest of the season here?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun just showing up and racing. I feel like it's gonna be pretty hard to catch Alex's point lead. Just feel like he's won way too many races, but I just enjoy showing up and having fun. It's usually pretty good racing.
And you mentioned the lack of track limits, but what did you think of Auto Club Speedway here? Otherwise, somewhere you want to go in real life
Oh, I
before it
feel
all gets torn down, I guess.
I was gonna say, yeah, I feel like that's just not gonna happen because it'll probably get torn down before I even would get it out that far. As an autocrosser, I gotta say, I kind of it holds a special place in my heart. Being able to knock down all those cones and not have to fetching them afterwards, kind of felt like a home race in that regard. But yeah, just wasn't meant to be.
Well, thanks for coming out, man. Is there anyone you'd like to thank for today?
Yeah, thanks to you guys, Team Huge Ass, for doing what you do and putting on these races. It's always a lot of fun, and enjoy watching the broadcast later. Gotta thank my fiance, obviously, for her love and support. And, yeah, just looking forward to the next one.
Day full of romance down here in the pits, apparently, Haynes.
So it is. Do you know what? I'm feeling very, very generous. So let's get fourth place finisher John Hurley repping the Danger Racing. Seventh on the grid to finish third. Is that good strategy, amazing pace, or just picking up the pieces as everyone fell around you?
Yeah, I think it's picking up a little bit of both. Picking up the pieces. I actually went faster in the race by not a whole bunch, but a little bit, and maybe I came in at the right time for tires versus a couple of other guys.
Now, you might have more champ car races under your belt than the rest of us in the room here combined. I'd have to crunch the sums on that one. But how have you been finding the iRacing series?
Oh, I really enjoyed the iRacing series. They're more like sprint racing. So you really try to have to get the most out of the lap, but you still have to be pretty accurate because you can bend up the car and wreck your race pretty quickly.
And what about the street stock here? I mean, we're back behind the wheel of some V8 iron. It was Indianapolis last round. It's Auto Club this round, and still with this car for Sebring next round on the 21st of October. Is it suiting your driving style, or is it a little too outdated, unsophisticated?
I've definitely improved driving this thing, and I enjoy it. And racing here with it, it was enjoyable. It hops. Going through turns 3 and 3 and 4 there, or 1 and 2. I don't even know. I've never been to this actual track, but so it starts hopping as you're going through the corner, and then as soon as you turn in, if you got just a little too much brake pressure, you're gonna lock up one of the wheels. Who knows? And we saw that at the beginning of the race where everybody just kind of went everywhere at the start.
And how about the tires today? Because we normally think about the street stock as eating up the tires pretty quickly, locking up the front tires, laying down 11s with the rear tires, leaving the corners. But then paint me surprised for California. Track temperature stayed pretty cool. So how did that balance?
I think that is probably what helped out because they lost like their little bit of extra grip within, say, they switched on coming out of the pits like middle of the second lap, and then they would start to drop off a little bit about 10 laps, maybe 5 laps later, but then they just stayed the same. So they were pretty stable. I mean, when I came out of the pits, I came out right in front of Max, and Max was, he was leaving the field pretty hard. and I was able to stay with him for a good amount. So that's a little bit different in the tires there, I think.
Well, thanks for your very interesting insight. Are we going to see you in a couple of weeks at Sebring?
I don't know. I'm towing to Sebring with our car, so I'm not sure what day we're going to leave. So it just depends. They have a test day that Friday before the race, and I haven't run our car since Sebring last year. So
whatever you end up doing, wishing you the best of luck.
I appreciate it. And hey, thanks for. I can't wait to watch the broadcast. Thanks for all the effort as usual. And obviously, if I can make the Sebring, I will. It's great. This iRacing series, this ChampCar iRacing series, is a good tool. We had a new driver tonight who it was her first race, and she's planning on. I assume she's planning on attending some ChampCar races. So it's working.
Awesome. Good to hear. Thank you, John Hurley, 4th place today from 7th on the grid. And that, Devon, just about comes to wrap up all of our coverage from Auto Club. But did you have any closing thoughts about tonight's race?
Well, you know what? For a track that I downloaded about an hour before this race started, I got to say I was pretty impressed by the racing it was able to provide. And, you know, I'm a little sadder than I was before about the whole thing getting bulldozed, allegedly, in 2023. And, well, we'll maybe have to talk to the guys and see if we can do a swing down out that way before it all disappears.
In 2023, I thought it was happening in, like, March next year. But that goes to show maybe I've not been keeping up. But regardless, that was round 12. And all we have from Auto Club Speedway for the ChampCar iRacing series, like I said, 21st of October, we're back once again on the track and on your screens for Sebring, all the way across the country in Florida. But that one's going to be a great race with the street stock once again. From HJBC, from myself, David Haynes, from Devin Peters, and from our producer, Michael Derby. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again soon. Good night.